Welcome to the People of DearDoc, an DearDoc Podcast, the show that brings you closer to the heart of our company. I'm your host, Billy, and each week we'll take you on a journey behind the scenes to meet the incredible individuals who drive our company's success. From marketing to product development, HR to sales, we're here to showcase the real people, the real stories, and the real passion that makes our workplace extraordinary. Whether you're a new hire that's eager to learn about our culture, or a seasoned pro looking to connect with colleagues that you've never met, this podcast is your invitation to join us in celebrating the unique talent that makes us who we are. So grab your favorite headphones, settle in, and get ready to meet the faces behind the roles as we dive deep into the heart of our company. It's time to discover the stories that inspire us, the ideas that drive us in the incredible journey that is DearDoc. Welcome to the People of DearDoc, an DearDoc Podcast. Let's get started.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the People of DearDoc. Today we have a very, very special guest joining us, our own VP of Sales, Mr. Lavi. Lavi, how are we doing?
I'm wonderful, Mr. Billy Rogers. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. How's the day going?
So far, so good. You know, I'm on West Coast time, so I start my days fairly early. I work New York hours on the West Coast, so I typically start my day at around, like, my laptop's open at 6 a.m. So I have very early mornings. I used to not be a morning person, but now I actually really love it. So I don't want to go down this rabbit hole of like talking about morning person, but like my morning's great, to answer your question.
Awesome. We're not going to get into it too much, but what time do you wake up in the morning?
I probably up at like 5 a.m. and
Okay.
do like the morning routine. Laptops open and ready by 6 a.m. Sometimes a little bit earlier. Yeah.
That's definitely early. So I want to get in, before we get into everything else of your role, like tell us more about yourself, like where are you from? What's your background like before coming to DearDoc?
Personal background is I was born in Israel. I moved to the States when I was 9 years old. So the accent is all gone, as you can hear. And went to school on the East Coast, actually, in the Maryland, D.C. area. That's where I grew up, so to speak. Maybe I'm still growing up. I don't know. And moved to Arizona around 22 years old. And
Okay.
So that's kind of like a personal, history. And I've lived in Arizona on and off since then with a few stops in a few different places, but mostly Arizona. Professionally, sales career started really early. I started selling as early as the age of 18 because I wanted to sell websites to small businesses. So I tested my flexed my entrepreneurial muscle pretty early and started selling websites to small businesses and thought it was a great way to make some extra cash in the summers. Grew to a more corporate route, worked some corporate jobs, all sales, only sales throughout my entire career. I would say, like the job that probably got me furthest in my career was I spent almost a decade at Yelp between 2011 and 2019. And that was, we'll call it like my formative professional years. And
Okay.
probably learned more during that time than anything else. Grew into some leadership roles, sales training roles, made it as high up as director of sales, which is, almost as high as you can get at that company. And
Right.
amazing experiences, learned so much. And then a few months ago, got a wonderful recruiting call from our very own Daria and the recruiting team. Caught me at an amazing time. And, she said, like, your skill set and what we're trying to build kind of go hand in hand. I did my homework, I did my research, and she was telling the truth. DearDoc is exactly what I was hoping for. I get to use the things I learned at Yelp to try to make this place scale and help people and bring in some more business. That's the short version of that story, Billy.
Love it. So I want to take it back real quick to the website. So were you actually creating websites? Were you having somebody else create them?
I was creating them. I don't know, like I'm totally going to show my age here, but this was around in 1998, and I bought a book from a store called Borders Bookshop. I don't know if anybody
Borders.
remembers what that is. So
I
I
remember
go to
Borders.
Borders. You do? You remember Borders?
Yeah, I remember Borders. Yep.
So funny. Uh, and the book was HTML for Dummies. And I taught myself how to code in HTML, and I designed a bunch of websites, mostly templates that I kind of recycled and used again, and just changed a few things like the fonts and the colors, and obviously people's photos, and like their About Us section was obviously different, but the templates
Right.
were very similar. So I designed a few templates, and I coded. There really wasn't like a Squarespace or a GoDaddy or a like
Mhm.
Wix, all these like free website generation tools. So I
Right.
coded on my own, dialed down the yellow pages, found businesses that had no websites, and just cold called them and said, "Hey, I'm a starving student. I'm trying to make some extra money in the summer. You guys don't have a website. Can I build you one?" And they're like, "Yeah," and like that really appealed to them. So it worked out. I made a few extra bucks.
That's cool. Did you like end up creating like a whole script for yourself, or you kind of just wing it back then? You didn't really know what was going on, or
The first, yeah, there was like a very loose script. The first version of the script was, "Hey, I would really love to help you guys. I run a company. My company builds websites." That script didn't really work that well
Mm.
because you know the 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 real truth is, like, there really wasn't a company. I was just one dude in an apartment, trying to
Right.
make some extra cash. So I think people saw through that. When I tried to pretend like I had a company, or pretend like I had this like huge business model, I think they saw through that, and eventually that evolved into more of like a, "Hey, I'm a starving student. Like, I can help you and you can help me." That's what the script evolved into, and that script worked really, really well.
Mm. So I know you said sales has been your thing since the beginning, since the website's coming in to Yelp and everything else from there. Were you like consciously aware that sales is something you want to do, or was it just something that kind of came about from doing websites, like, all right, this kind of sales, and then going more professionally after that?
I think that to share something a little personal with you, and obviously I don't mind that this gets shared on the World Wide Web. But when I was 18, my dad got really sick. So he got sick with cancer. He got diagnosed with cancer when I was 18, and I was in a position where all my friends were going to like huge 4-year universities, like University of Maryland, University of Virginia, which was nearby. Obviously, all the schools in DC, like Georgetown, American University, places like that. So there was a chip on my shoulder because I was incredibly jealous. I was like, "Man, F these guys, right? Like, I want to go to
Mhm.
school full time. I want to live in a dorm room, and I want to experience the whole college experience." But I didn't really get a chance to do that because my dad was incredibly sick, and while my mom was working, I was at home acting as the role of caretaker. So
Mm.
I was taking evening courses at a community college when my mom was home, right? And in the evenings, but during the day, I was at home with my dad. So like I don't want to say I missed out on the college experience, because all these years later, I certainly don't regret it, right?
Right.
But in the moment, I very much felt like I missed out on the college experience. Like, while all my buddies were partying their faces off at big schools, so I had this chip on my shoulder, and I was like, I want to outdo them. I want to beat them. Like, and what can I do to to A, be the best version of myself, but like B, quietly like defeat my friends. And I learned very
Right.
quickly that sales is probably the number one way for a person who can speak well, can present themselves well, has a good communication style. Like, if you have those things, you can out earn the doctors and the lawyers and the engineers. You really
Right.
can.
Yeah.
I pieced that together fast, like fat. I'm like, oh, this is great money. And all I have to do is, just be a good salesperson. Obviously sell well, like sell an honest product, be ethical, like, don't cheat people out of their money. That should be a given, but as long as you have good communication style, you can out earn doctors, lawyers, and engineers. Like I call those the big three.
Okay.
So that's why I wanted to be in sales so much and pursue this career path. It came from having a chip on my shoulder. Obviously, all these years later, that chip is gone, but like that's how it all started.
Yeah, but it acts as the foundation for who you are now. Like if you look back at, everyone's turning point in life, they do things out of inspiration or desperation, right? And it seems like this played a huge role into the factor of why you're moving into going to building websites and doing everything else, which took you down to the career path you are now. And now you're in this space you are now. I'm sure you're happy with yourself, as you should be.
Incredibly.
Yeah, because things really happen for us, not to us, and it's hard to see it sometimes in the moment, but it always ends up playing out in the long run and acts as like a true blessing. And this puts you on the right path supposed to be going towards, pretty much, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's super interesting. Learning a little more about how you got to where you are now. So I want to talk more about being at DearDoc. You said Daria reached out to you, and you did your research. What were some things that popped out to you in the beginning that made you think, okay, this is actually a place I want to go in and be a part of?
Yeah, there were a few things. I think meeting with Joe was crucial. I wanted to learn from some of my mistakes in previous roles. I think that, and I don't want to bash any of my former employers. That's not what this is about at all. But I think when in meeting Joe, I wanted to find out like who is this man, not just as a CEO, but just as a person, right? As a human being on planet Earth, like what does he represent? What does he stand for? And I'm not trying to schmooze him. That's not where I'm going with this. But like, this is a guy who started a company from his apartment, right? And invited people, Carmelo and Danny. He's like, hey, I'm going to start this movement. Do you guys want to be a part of this? And like the fact that they all came along on the journey says a lot about who he is as a person.
Right.
So that was a big deal for me. Like this wasn't just a money grab. This wasn't a cash grab for him. Like there was a personal story that was the foundation for him. That was a huge checkbox for me. And I asked him a lot of tough questions, like, what's our relationship going to be like? If we decide that we like each other and we agree on salary, on terms, on everything, all that aside, what's our relationship going to be like? And I asked him some tough questions. He asked me some tough questions. And that's something that I did not do in previous roles. And I learned to regret that later because it's such an important question. Like, what's our relationship going to be like? I encourage everyone who ever applies for a job to make that one of their top questions. Because if you don't ask it and you go work for someone and you know, like maybe the money's good and maybe the product is great and those check boxes are good for you, but if you don't get along with the person that you talk to for 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 hours a day, that's like, who cares about everything else, right?
Right.
So that for me was a huge motivating factor to come work at DearDoc. And then there's a few other perks, right? I think the sales team is spectacular. I think that me coming in here, like, I don't really need to teach anyone how to sell. Like everybody here is like a baller salesperson already. They're the sales team with a smaller amount. You've probably heard this quote before. I would take our small group of salespeople and put them up against like hundreds of other salespeople at other companies. Dollar for dollar, we would win. We would
Love
like
it.
we would actually win. Maybe we're like the 300 soldiers of like Thermopylae or something. Ever seen that movie 300?
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
like 300 against hundreds of thousands. Like we have a strategy that works, and I'll take our soldiers, quote unquote, against any other team. That was a huge perk for me to really want to come here as well. So I know you asked a very brief question. I gave you a long-winded answer, but it's real. It's the truth.
No, I love it. And I think a lot of people can definitely relate to that. Coming in, whether you're on sales, you're on CS, or even product development side, there's certain things that stick out from this company that make it so different from everything else. It's the culture we have here. It's the people who are leading us here. It's like a cohesiveness and a harmony that you don't see in other companies, where everybody you talk to here is excited to come in the morning. They're excited to go back to work on Monday. And talking to my friends personally and people I know in my life, that's something you never hear about growing up or in day-to-day life. People are like, oh, I have to go to work tomorrow. Where here, you ask anybody else, like, I can't wait to get back into the office. I can't wait to get back on that Zoom meeting on Monday morning because it's fun. We have fun here and we actually make a big difference in people's lives. It's special.
It's real though, right? It's real. And
Yeah.
sometimes I tell people, and they don't believe me because they think it's fake, and I'm like,
Yep.
no, I love this place.
Yeah, it's great.
And just the idea that, again, I always worry that sometimes I say things that are like bashing other organizations. That's not the intent. If anything, I want to raise this organization up. But like most organizations, if a member of the sales development team said, I want to run a podcast and I want to interview some people that, from all walks of the organization, from engineers to CS to sales, and I want to dedicate hours of my life to do that. Billy, 99% of organizations would tell you, no, we need you
Right.
to we need you to stay in your lane and do the job you signed up to do. The fact that we're even having this conversation is a testament to how cool DearDoc is. So like
100%. I
that's
couldn't agree more.
yep.
Yeah, it's a huge thing. So you've been here for how many months now?
Can you believe it's almost 3? I'm about to end of October will be 3.
It's crazy because it's flying by so quick, but it also has feel like over a year, and I haven't even been here a year yet. And that
It's
just means like you're in the right place at the right time, the right
yeah,
things
I agree.
going on.
I agree. 100% agree.
So in your short but long 3 months coming up, can you name like maybe one memory that really sticks out to you that's special with DearDoc or something you really liked or had fun at?
I think maybe not so much of like a memory, but more of like uh, I think one of our values that I really appreciate is well, man, there's so many, right? But maybe it's not so much like a value and more of like a sub value. It's like don't be a jackass
Right.
and like squash gossip, like squash
Mhm.
gossip. Don't be a jackass. And we actually believe that it's not just something that's written on the wall as like a slogan. At some companies you'll walk in and there'll be like a poster on the wall, and it's like play well with others, and work hard, play hard. You see that a lot.
Yeah.
Work life balance, which is so stupid. Can we just call that out as how stupid all that is, right? Like it, posters don't create values, right? Like people create values, and it's not so much a memory, but like in it's a process. And in almost all of our meetings, our themes in our meetings is like no limiting beliefs. We squash gossip, right? We don't be a jackass. Treat people well, and it's talked about and it's practiced a lot. So less of a memory, more of just like a process that I really love.
Love it. And the next thing I want to talk about was processes. So like you're coming in now into like one of the top leadership roles we have to come into and run the sales department. How do you approach the processes now? Like how do you implement new things or change things or keep everything level across the board? How do you approach like your problem solving? I guess is the right question to answer or
I
ask.
I thank you for that. I made myself a promise that my first 90 days, I would not try to like break anything. I think that's really important. Nobody wants the guy who comes in from the outside and starts pointing fingers like, "Oh, that process sucks. Well, that process sucks. Oh, we have to redo that whole thing." Nobody likes that guy. So I made a promise first 90 days. I would put on my student hat and just learn as much as possible. And then, like, based on data, make adjustments, but don't make adjustments based on feelings. Because like, you really don't know anything about a company in your first 90 days. Like, you have to learn. You have to figure out like what's working, what's not working. If it's not working, what you cannot do is jump to a conclusion. You have to go in and do scientific research. So, like, hypothetically, if I said, you know, this is totally hypothetical, right? So don't take this at face value. But if I said, like,
Okay.
we're not holding meetings at a high enough percentage, what if I had that thought? Well, then what I won't do is I won't announce that thought in a meeting. I won't just announce it. I will not go into a meeting and be like, I feel like we're not holding at a high percentage. I'd have to go and do a lot of homework, pull together a lot of reports, create a couple of dashboards, really, really listen to the KPIs, and then put together a case study. And I would come to one of two conclusions. The first conclusion is I was wrong. I was actually wrong. Like, what if, and thank God I didn't say that out loud. Because if I said it out loud and I was wrong, I'd really be a jackass, right?
Right.
Or conclusion number two is I'm right. But now, not only am I right, I have a significant amount of data to back it up. So
Love it. Yeah.
in speaking of processes, my first 90 days, I'm trying to be as much of a student as possible. I even invite, the sales managers to call me out sometimes, just in case I violate that rule, or anyone, SDRs, AEs, in case I violate that rule, I welcome them to call me out and be like, Lavi, don't break it. It's working, you know?
Mhm.
So ask me this question again on day 91. I'll have an answer for
Okay.
you.
Love it. Yeah, you're very big on data, I could tell, because you create amazing spreadsheets and other really cool things for us. That was a huge improvement. I think that's something really cool. Did you have a background in like creating like Excel things?
I wouldn't say a background. I would just thank you. I'm glad you like the spreadsheets. Thank you. I
I
wouldn't
love it.
say a
It's the best thing ever.
great, amazing. Yeah, isn't data like data is cool. Accountability is sexy. If you
Yeah.
love holding yourself accountable, then do it through data. You ever see like people at the gym who are like walking around with a notebook and they write down all of their exercises? They know exactly what they're doing every day. So like, okay, today's leg day. I have 3 sets of this, 3 sets of that. Oh, last week I did this weight, so this week I have to increase by 5 pounds. Like they
Mhm.
have like the people who practice self accountability are always superior to people who don't. And that goes for all walks of life. I think the gym is just a good example because you see people with the notebooks and they write down their exercises and they have a checklist of things they have to accomplish. That's data driven accountability, right?
Right.
And then
Yeah.
they're
And
always
then think about
no, go ahead, go ahead.
no, yeah, I think that's it's huge because think about that, like how you do one thing is how you can do everything. So that one thing from the gym is going to bleed into their day-to-day life. And
Yeah,
same thing here. We're focused on data here at work and we become accustomed to it and not scared of it and welcome it and actually just with it. That's going to come into our own personal lives now and help us grow outside. I think that's one thing that's unique about DearDoc in particular is that we could take stuff from our day-to-day role and learn in our outside life and improve our actual overall life.
100%, 100%.
Mhm.
And the spreadsheets were like a lifelong passion. This is something that's just kind of slowly evolved over the years where I watch YouTube videos and, subscribe to podcasts. I'm like an undercover nerd when it comes to that stuff. I think it's cool. I think it helps you grow. Um, and if that's something that you have on your like internal resume, not your external, like your internal resume, if you can say like I'm a great salesperson, um, I'm really good at data analysis, man, I like you raise your stock goes
But
up, you become really good at data analysis. So I figured, let me spend some time learning that because I know that it'll get me farther in my own career.
yeah, it's definitely paying off. So I want to tailgate that now into our next little like segment here. So obviously you're a data nerd or like, nerd outside of things. Like this obviously is more than just like work for you. What do you like to do outside of work? What are like your hobbies, your interests?
Um, Love to exercise as much as I can. I'll be at the gym, maybe 3 days a week. Um, Really, I have a YouTube channel that every once in a while I'll update a video to. I have not been as good the last few weeks. Usually I'll upload like 5, 6 videos a month, but I have not in the last few weeks. But for good reasons. I've been like knee deep in work related stuff, which has kept me really excited. I'm a big movie nerd. I feel like I will not lose in a game of movie trivia. Like I will not lose. I will accept all challengers in movie trivia, and we'll put money on
Okay.
it. And let's see, what else do I like in my personal life? I dabble a little bit in some real estate investments. I love that, like as like a you know a I don't want to call it a side hustle. I would call it like just a growth venture. I'm a big fan of real estate, and things like that excite me in my outside of DearDoc life.
Awesome. So this is one of my favorite parts of the podcast. It's like a rapid fire kind of question. I don't know if you've seen this before, but we're just going to ask questions, and the first thing comes to your mind, you're pretty much just going to go.
Give it to me. I'm
You ready?
ready. Yep.
Okay. So you have to create a new Olympic sport that's not currently in the Olympics. It doesn't have to be a sport, but something that our country is going to represent. What are you going to be leading, and what sport are you going to be creating?
Something that the United States has to represent.
Yeah, and you're going to be the one running it, leading the team.
Jeez, man, you had to ask me something like that. All right, we would a sport. Let's call it entrepreneurship. The,
Entrepreneurship, boom.
the sport of business creation.
It's
I
the best
feel like,
sport.
yeah, I feel like the contest or the sport would be like you have 30 days to design, build, lay out, and execute a business project, and people from like all countries would be represented. That'd be a fun sport. And like, I
That
don't know
was
how
fun.
you measure the winner, but I'm sure we could figure out a fun way.
Yeah, there'll be something for that. So now going into movies, this is your strong suit. You have to live in like a parallel universe from a movie or a TV show. What movie are you picking? What universe or world is it?
I would live in like an animated universe, probably, right? Like,
Which one?
I don't know. It's probably like The Incredibles or Moana, or something
Moana.
like just live in a world of song and dance where there's always a happy ending, and like add a little science fiction to it. Maybe I could fly around or have superpowers. Yeah, something like that.
Sick. Apple or Android?
Apple, come on,
Apple all the way.
all day.
Love it. Would you rather go in the future or go in the past in a time machine?
I go into the past. I go into the past
Is
for
something
for for two very selfish reasons. Um,
okay?
n- Number one, I'm kind of old school, just like in my day to day. I still like calling people as opposed to texting and having like a little bit more of a human interaction. I'd like to go back to a time where that was still a thing. And then part two is, I would totally cheat in playing the stock market because I already know what's going to happen.
That'd be sick. Or even just the times like knocking on someone's door, just showing up and knocking on someone's door. That's not
Yeah,
real. That doesn't happen anymore.
it's super rare. Or like where you call someone's house and you're like, hey, Mr. Smith, is your
Yeah,
daughter home? Right? Like, oh, and like you like actually had to communicate with people, and it was scary, right? Like if you wanted to
it is scary.
if you wanted to flirt with a girl at school, you have to call her house. That was, can you imagine?
Yeah, you weren't sliding into Instagram DMs.
No, no, that wasn't real in the 90s.
That's great. The last one is you have a genie. They grant you three wishes. What are the three wishes you're wishing for?
Oh man. Look, I'm going to be super boring here, right? And it's like not designed to be political by any means, but come on, just like peace on earth, right? Like stop the wars. Like that's wish number one. Like it's so crazy the things that we allow ourselves to do as humans, you know? So like that's wish number one, no more wars. Wish number two is I'll also be selfish, right? I'll like take care of family, you know, like immediate family, like no more financial worries. That's easily wish number two. And then like wish number three is, you know, like how many people answer money to this? I bet a lot of people say like, give me like millions of dollars. I guess, you know, why not? I'll take it, but not because I want to stop working. I don't want to stop working. I really love working. Maybe I'll take it just to know I have financial security so that, you know, one less thing to worry about in life.
A little stability. Maybe you can go
Yeah.
into your real estate ventures as well.
Maybe. Yeah. Have a little fun, but not to stop working. I like working.
Okay, cool. And to kind of lead us out on this, I want to ask you like a three-party question.
Okay.
So you have experience in just being a salesperson.
Okay.
Give us a little advice on somebody that can grow as a salesperson, become better. Give us some advice on leadership, becoming like a strong leader. And the last thing is
Sure.
just overall life advice.
Sure. Okay. Salesperson first. You have a resource at your disposal, recorded calls. You have it, but so many salespeople opt out of listening to their own recorded calls. And look, I get it. You don't like the sound of your own voice, right? You don't like the feeling of rejection. Like you already got rejected. Now you got to go back and listen to yourself getting rejected again. That's
Yep.
like a kick while you're down. But if you can put your ego aside and your pride aside for 2 seconds, your recorded calls are probably the best tool you have at your disposal to go get better at the job. So like forget the fact that you got rejected. Go listen to your tone, listen to your cadence. Are you using filler words? Do you use words like and but yeah if? You know, those words are not helping you. Those are not serving you well. Go back and listen to your calls. It's like I can't stress that enough. And if you ask 100 people, do you go back and listen to your own calls? I feel like 90 would say no
I agree
because
with that.
they don't like it. So that is, in my opinion, an ego-driven move. It's a prideful thing, and I don't love that. Think of like a professional athlete that's like, you know what? I don't want to watch game film. They'll be like, what are you talking about? We are watching game film. Go back and watch game film. Like, how else do you know what you did well and what you did not, or what you didn't do well? So be a professional. Listen to your calls. Go back and rewatch your Zoom meetings if you're on the sales team, right? And learn from it. Write down the things you want to do better. Get better. Constantly improve. Can't stress that enough. The single greatest tool at our disposal we do not use. Okay.
The film doesn't lie.
The film never lies. The film never lies. All right. Number two, as a leader, it's really more of a like a mindset than anything else. Try your hardest to be objective. So try your hardest to be like, you know, especially if you're giving people feedback. So if I were to pull you aside and say, hey, I got some feedback for you, I would not be doing justice by you if I was like, hey, Billy, you know, it feels like you're just not really scheduling a lot of meetings these days. And then you'd be like, Lavi, what are you talking about, man? I'm averaging 5.6 meetings a day. And I'd be like, oh, you are? So like, don't go into a situation where you're feeling something that's not backed by some evidence. That is one of my number one pieces of advice for leaders. Try your hardest to be objective. Look, there will be situations. There will be situations where you do talk about feelings and you are driven by emotion. And I'm not saying we eliminate those altogether. I'm just saying try your hardest to be objective. Have some data. Go in and listen to the calls before you go give feedback, so that your feedback
Right.
has some substance, right? Hey, like how cool would it be if I said, hey, Billy, man, I listened to 10 of your calls this morning and I picked up on something, like this one tweak midway through your call, typically at like the 30-second mark, you have this one thing. You'd be like, I bet you'd be thankful. Be like, wow, you listen to 10 of my calls? Dude,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you. Right. So like I think it's a gift to give someone to go do homework before you give them feedback. How about that? Do your homework before
I
you
think
give
it's great.
feedback.
Yeah.
And what was the last question? Personal advice?
Yeah. Life advice in general.
I don't know, man. I mean, I don't know if I'm one to give life advice, but it's such a tough question. I don't know. Am I one to give life advice? I'm not sure. Have a vision board. I have a vision board. That's my life advice. Put together, like, visualize the things that you want. Visualize things that you want. So when I was working at Yelp as an individual contributor, I really wanted to get into leadership, and I made my screensaver on my monitor the car that I wanted to buy when I got my next promotion. So like I looked at it. I looked at it every day. I'm like, no, and like so whenever I felt like, like, let's say the day ends at 6:30, and if it was 6:28, looking at that car made me make 5 more dials before it was 6:30.
Yep.
So like, put something out in the universe that you really want. Maybe it's a new house, maybe it's a new car, maybe it's like a weight loss goal, like an exercise goal, something like that. I would say visualize it, and like, don't break the promise to yourself. So if you make yourself that promise, go fulfill. The day I got promoted into leadership at Yelp, I was at the dealership that same day, and I bought that car. That was a damn good feeling. And if you're wondering what it was a 2012 Cadillac CTS coupe. It was
Ooh, nice.
yeah, man. It was. I'll just say it. It was a chick magnet. Let's just say it. Let's put it out there. It was a great vehicle.
Epic. And the power vision's super strong. Super
Yeah.
strong. Having that vision
Yeah.
board. Yeah. Lavi, thanks for coming on. I appreciate you coming on, talking to us, sharing a lot of advice for us. You are filled with a lot of wisdom, whether it's one-on-ones with you or, sharing stuff in meetings. And also your YouTube channel has a lot of great stuff. So I encourage people to definitely check out your YouTube as well. And I'm sure if anyone has any questions, you're more than happy to answer. Just open on Slack.
Always.
Anything else before we go?
No, man. Thank you. I appreciate you. Your platform is amazing, and I'm thanking you as much as you're thanking me. This is a great experience.
This is great. Thanks for coming on.
You got it, man. Thanks, Billy.